So, Robert, what are we going to talk about today?
We're going to talk about why do people want to get in this business?
Right.
So, why do you think folk want to get in here? Because they're looking for fame and fortune behind the camera.
Yep.
And they think that their small talent that they have of creativity is going to drive them to a spot where they can either make photographs of famous people or design for famous labels and companies, and they don't know where to start. They don't know what the realities are, and we're here to give them some pointers.
Sure. So let's do that. With that, earlier we were talking about getting that start and how at the beginning things don't always go how we want them to, how at the beginning things kind of suck at the beginning.
Absolutely.
Process. But that's almost kind of the point.
They have to suck.
It has to suck in the beginning because there will be no progress past that point. So let's just talk more on that.
I am talented. I am so talented. I've been drawing since I was in the third grade.
Right.
And so when I go and show my work, here's a couple of drawings here, and I want you to see my work, and I want you to see how talented I am. So pay me $80,000.
Sure.
And
then that doesn't happen.
And it doesn't happen.
And it doesn't happen because of a few reasons.
And some of those
For a lot of
reasons are, what are your work ethics? What do you have behind you?
Mm-hmm.
Even though you've been at pen to paper,
right?
How do you transfer that into a business? And you are the business.
And sometimes it's not even just, I want to just throw a quick thing in there. Sometimes it's not always just about you in a business. Sometimes you're starting out in a job.
Yes.
And how do you progress through that, through having a job? And how do these things work in a multitude of different instances? So I don't want to just limit it to people who are in the business because not everyone is at that stage of their life right now.
And one of the things I wanted to say about that is that at any and all stages of your life, you are the business.
You are the business, right? People are the business. And you as a creative, you as a artist, whatever you are the business.
So even though you may be hired by a business,
right,
if you don't look at yourself as putting your name on it, on each piece of creative that you're doing, then you're not going to do your best work. Mm-hmm. And you're always trying to do your best work, even if it's for someone else.
Right.
Because eventually you won't be at that business anymore.
Right.
And you're going to be working with someone else or even yourself. And so at that point, if you have not thought of it as your signature on each thing that you do or each part of the things that you do, that means that you're not doing your best work. And if you're not doing your best work, then how are you going to do work for yourself the best? If that makes any sense.
It does. So with that being the case, how did you, tell me a little bit about how you got your start and how did it progress from being hard? How did it progress from sucking or being hard or being difficult to where you are now? And is it better progress for you? Is it a better situation for you?
I was the kind of kid who was somewhat of a perfectionist. Didn't know what I was a perfectionist about, but I always tend to want to do things better than they were being done at the time. And I didn't always know how to do that. And not knowing how to do it, I made a few failings, meaning that if someone was riding a bike, I wanted to be the fastest rider. I wanted to be the one that had all the tricks. And if I didn't know how to do it, I would practice until I got one better than the best that was around. Right. Having that sort of ethics, I found carried over into what I was doing when I joined the military, wanting to be the best technician that I could be around the group of other technicians that were in that environment, wanting to be better than the best. And after leaving the military, I said, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I had been given a camera early on. That's a whole nother story. But once I left the military, I decided I'd do photography. Got in there with a group of people at a school, and once again decided I wanted to be better than whoever the best was. There's a guy named Reggie Parker at the time, and Reggie, if I'm giving you a shout out, don't worry, you were the best at the time, at least in my head. No, actually Ron Lee. No, I digress. But I wanted to be better, and the point in being better is that I would stay up and study. I would stay late in the dark room. I would do anything and everything just to be better than that person. What I didn't realize is that I needed to be better than me. Once that happened, and I went to work for someone else, that idea that what I'm doing now is going to be a reflection of who I am, not just better than someone else, but a reflection of who I am, then I needed to put out a product that said Robert Rostick instead of someone else.
Right.
And that's why I talk about the signature product. The product that you're putting out, it has to be about you. And when I say about you, I mean it's the best product within the team that you're working with that you can ever produce with your signature on it.
So in that process, where did the drive to keep being better than yourself come from? Because and how did you find just the motivation just to keep going, even when you hit a wall in something? You hit a wall in photography, in life, whatever the case may be. When you hit those walls, how did you keep pushing forward? How did you keep pushing through those instances? People
fail you. They don't really fail you. I'd say that. I say people fail you as something thrown out there to get your attention. We put all our faith in other people to say that they are our guidance, they are our leaders, they are the ones, and they are perfect. But the moment we realize that they are just a guide, they are leading us, but they are not perfect. In order to get perfection, we have to find that within ourselves.
Right.
Once we go within ourselves, we find that there is a drive. There is something that makes you want to be better than you and not better than someone else. And I used to work for this guy who everybody idolized and thought he was the greatest thing in the world. But once I found his flaws, I realized that I had flaws as well. So then it became about not about the person, but about the work. And the work that he did was great. The work that I was doing was not good enough because I wasn't putting my all into being better than someone else because he was my mentor. The moment I realized that my competition had to be against me, then the fire was lit at that particular point. It was lit, and then the drive came because I know that I am going to be with me until the rest of my life. So if I got competition, I'm going to have it for the rest of my days against me. And that's not to be arrogant to say that I'm better than. No, I'm saying that the product that I want to produce is the best product so that when it goes out into someone else's hand, it doesn't have to come back to me and say, this is not good enough.
But you do have to be confident about saying that, and that confidence, I think, comes over time.
Oh, absolutely, it comes over time.
From trial and error. So,
absolutely.
Fast forward, you got your camera, you went through the military, you were out of the military, you began to start teaching photography. That's where you and I met.
Yes.
Over 14 years ago in Atlanta. So at the point where you decided to open up TRG Studios, or is it TRG Studio? TRG Studios, is it plural?
Singular. It's a TRG Studio.
TRG Studio. So at the time you decided to open up TRG Studio, what are the pitfalls? What are the things that may have stopped you from doing it, but you found you kept going? And how did you? What lessons did you learn from that?
Look, to open your doors means you already have to have some sort of client base behind you. Okay. You have to have something already coming through the door before you open the door. Meaning that I have to have somebody that is willing to part their wallet, the contents of their wallet, into my business. And I'd worked at Allied Pixels as a partner there, and in order to build a client base. And people would come there. It was a great time too. Changing from the analog to digital world, meaning going from film to digital photography, and people didn't know about digital as much. And I had already read up on it, about it, working at the Creative Circus. Right. Not just read up on it, working in it in the digital age. Thanks to Mr. Greg Strelecki over there.
Greg Strelecki.
Yeah, great guy over at Creative Circus.
He was a great dude.
In fact, just a plug to them, if you are really, really serious about wanting to do commercial photography, those guys over at the Creative Circus is a place to be.
And they're doing it right.
And they are definitely doing it right.
I think if you want to be if you're taking being a creative seriously, the Creative Circus as a whole is the place to be.
It is definitely the place to be.
That's where I got my training. Creative Circus. What year was that? 2003, I think?
Yeah.
2003. That's when I graduated. So, but definitely, my whole life changed once I arrived at that school. So, shout out to Creative Circus.
Now, on the individual basis, if you want to learn about how to get from the beginning into a professional, and the school environment is not your environment,
right,
and you're a one-on-one kind of learner, then that's the niche that I fulfill. I work with people one-on-one in order to get them to a state of readiness, not so much to open up their own studio, but to get their confidence up in order to go out and pursue jobs. So eventually they will open up their own studio, and that's the route that I've set up for myself.
So how has your business changed, if any change, from the start to now?
Well,
has the structure changed? The way you teach changed? The clientele changed? What have those changes been?
I tend to deal with an older client, meaning that they are already graduated and out of school, started their family. So they're in the 30 to on up range. And they're the people that like to make pictures of their family, really, really nice pictures of the family. And also the people that are interested in travel and have the wherewithal or the financial resources in order to do that. Right. And so there are a lot of good, great, expensive cameras that are very sophisticated, and I tend to want to teach those people how to master those cameras and master the art of seeing at the same time. So those are the type of people I work with. Now, how has it changed? More cameras are getting very sophisticated, and people feel as though the camera is going to do all the work for them, right, so they don't need me as much until they rely on the camera solely, and then they realize that they need to learn how to see.
Right.
And that creative step of what do you do in case the camera fails you, which is what I get a lot.
So they need to be. It's more about how they think about photography.
Correct. It's the thinking process.
The doing of photography.
Correct. Because when you just buy a camera just to press the button, that's fun and good, and you're going to get some really, really nice pictures from those. But how do you get those award-winning type of images? How do you prepare yourself for the images that are not just stand in this spot, press the button, and that's a pretty picture type of image? How do you get those? And I train you, prepare you, teach you about how to see.
Right.
So, and that's been the biggest thing, that to convince people why they need TRG Studio. It's for that journey of learning, not only about how to see and the operation of the camera, but about themselves. So that, because that was my journey as well. I had to learn about who I was in order to be more effective in my imagery and in my teaching.
Cool.
So that's a lot of stuff about me. Beach and Maine. Beach and Maine came on the scene when?
Woo. Beach and Maine has actually been around for a few years now, but it's been through its trials and it's been through its ups and downs. So my start for Beach and Maine definitely it's a 180 from where I am right now. When I started Beach and Main, I thought I was going to make products because I was good at making things and once I put my hands on something, I can produce a product that people were going to like. So I did that, and I hated it because then I had to turn around and sell it and market it.
Whoa.
And that just wasn't my, that part of selling wasn't my thing. So, Beach and Main came around because I got, just like UnManageables, Beach and Main came around because I got laid off from my job a couple years ago, and I needed to just keep working. So I did some freelance work. I got in contact with some old friends, and all the work that I did freelance-wise for that first year, a couple years ago, was under Beach and Main. So that's where Beach and Main started to pivot a little bit, get away from me doing products to me operating as a graphic designer still, because that's what I'm good at, and that's what my career has been up to this point. But I started seeing that as I'm working on different projects for my clients, they're asking me to do other things that involve, just bigger thinking and a different type of a thought process. So I had to hear that a little bit. It wasn't really apparent to me that things were shifting for me, and shifting away from just being a designer and shifting towards now I'm a person who can actually provide or add value by providing insights to the other parts of this industry and helping people launch products and helping people. But you go ahead, you were going to say something.
I was going to say, Beach and Main, but then there's UnManageables.
UnManageables too. So Beach and Main, with Beach and Main, what I do is I work with one-on-one with creatives and other artists to help them figure out where they want to be in the market, to help them sell themselves, to help them rebrand themselves and position themselves to their client base, help them find their clients, help them operate better as artists. So that's what Beach and Main does. However, UnManageables really unfolded and literally came out of the situation of me being laid off from my job. And the reason I was laid off from that job is they told me that I was unmanageable because I was doing things that I thought needed to be done to get the job done. And they wanted me to do a certain job to appease the need for, how can I say that? They wanted me to do certain things. They wanted me to sit behind the desk, be a designer, click the mouse, and then, clock in at 9 o'clock, leave at 5 o'clock.
Sometimes creativity can be stifled.
Sometimes creativity is stifled. A lot of the times, I think, that depending if you take a person and you take them out of their, my comfort zone is finding where I really operate really well is finding ways out of no way. I like that part. I like the problem solving part, and I like the getting out of a situation. So that's what I was doing at this job. There were certain things that they needed done, from photography to video, and I didn't know how to do any of those things, but I stepped up and I said, I'm gonna get these done because it needs to be done, And
people sometimes hold back the greatest part of somebody's potential,
right,
or others' potential, based on their own needs or lack of needs,
right,
of a particular job.
Right.
And sometimes a company that you work for, when they do that, you'll need to realize, where is your best interest? Is it with promoting this company, and because of the fact that you might have, need some stability, it may have health insurance, they may have provide you a check with that, every week or every 2 weeks or once a month, that's very, very steady.
Right.
But if you do that creativity that you have inside of you, and they're trying to stifle that, or not, they're not even trying to stifle it, or it's not meeting your needs, then that's when I said earlier that about your own business sense. You have the business sense chance to go somewhere else where your creativity can flourish, can grow.
Right.
And if you're not managing your own creativity process, then you're being unmanageable at the same time.
And that's literally where the direction came from. Was I want to be a part of raising a generation of unmanageables, right? And what that means is from primarily with Black creatives, because it's a market that we're coming into markets where it's hard for us to get into a lot of the times, and we're not expected to know the market as well as others are. So I want to make sure that younger creatives, or even creatives my age and older, know what they're getting into and know how to navigate through the market. So
now you said young Blacks. Now other people out there are going to take that and go like, here we go.
Here we go. Why does it always have to be about Black people?
Because
everything's already not about Black people.
I am Black, and yes. And I'm in an industry where I'm considered to be a minority in this industry, not just because of my color, but because of the amount of people that are like me in this industry. And if we don't train the people that are in there, we don't train the people that are like us, that look like us, then there won't be any to pull from when it comes to getting a job, or people that are doing the hiring saying, I don't know any people like you. So we are there to train Black people that have the drive and the energy and the let's go back to that word drive. To have the drive. You don't even have to have the energy, just the drive to do so.
To show up.
And if you have that drive to show up, we'll put some energy bars in you.
Right.
And that's why we're talking about the Black and brown people. Now, once we get we're able to train people up and get them to the point where they are able to produce, then albeit there'll be a pool of people out there which the larger industry can pull from, and that's good. Mm-hmm. That's a good thing.
Right. And and the thing is too, because we talked about this before, it's not exclusive.
No, not at all. Not at all.
People from the process. It's just focusing in directly with the concerns of being a Black creative or a Black artist, and what that means as they're emerging into the industry. So, and I know we'll talk more about this in the coming episodes of this podcast.
Yes.
But that's definitely the direction.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited for what we're doing right now, and I'm super excited for moving into the future and coming up with ideas, coming up with having discussions around this issue.
Yes.
As we have 2 other young Black creatives in the studio with us right now that are getting to witness this thing happen. So
and helping us to put it on.
And helping us to put it all together.
And there is a shout out to the name Lumiere Rostick. And also to
Larry Mack over here on sound. And what else are we doing? What is Lumiere showing me right now? 5 minutes until 30 minutes. All right. So let's wrap this thing up. And we will definitely be having more conversations, and we're definitely gonna, hopefully we find our groove with this thing, and we find we just found a place where it needs to be, where we need to be having the conversations with the audience that we intend to have. So
I'm Robert Rostick at TRG Studio, and
I am Bryan Voliton at Beach and Main.
So thanks for listening.